Hey, what's up guys? Thanks for clicking on this video. So for today, I wanted to give you my personal thoughts on the Tudor BB58 Blue. And yes, I'm aware that there's a litany of other YouTube reviews for this particular watch that are already out there, but I just want to give you guys my honest feedback about this watch. I'll give you guys a quick breakdown of the specs, but then I'm going to discuss some of the things I really like and some of the gripes that I have with this timepiece as well. Now, I've actually had this watch on my wrist for about a month now, and if you're looking for a mid-sized dive watch under $5,000 that's got some amazing specs, it's really hard to compete with anything outside of Tudor for the price point. Now, I do want to mention that in the past I've owned the original BB58. That is the black dial with the gilt markers colorway. And if I had to choose between the black or the current navy blue version, I'm definitely going with this guy right now. I think it makes a great summer watch now that we're into the warmer weather, and I really like how the blue dial corresponds with the silver markers and those snowflake hands. So let's flip perspectives now, and you guys can check out the watch up close in my studio, and I'll give you guys an overview of what I think about having the Tudor BB58 over the past few months. Okay guys, so here is the BB58 Navy Blue in the studio. And I did mention that this was a mid-sized dive watch. Kind of what I consider anything as a mid-sized diver if a case diameter is under 40 millimeters. So this is actually a 39 millimeter case diameter. Flipping to the side, the lug to lug between my thumbs here is just over 47 millimeters. The overall case height is a nice 11.8 millimeters. That's to the bottom of the screwed in case back here to the top of this slightly boxed sapphire crystal. And then the lug opening here for the supplied OEM bracelet is a universal 20 millimeters. The bracelet actually tapers nicely from 20 millimeters at the head of the watch down to about 16 millimeters before you get to the clasp. Goes up to about 18 millimeters again at the clasp, and I'll talk more about the bracelet a little bit later. Now, I really do like the execution of this navy blue colorway that Tudor was able to achieve with this timepiece. It kind of pays tribute to the original Tudor Submariners that harken back to about 50 years ago. Now, the bulk of the hour markers are actually round silver surrounds, instead of those like squares you would normally see on Tudor Submariners. But I do like how they kept that long triangle at the 12 o'clock for orientation, and then you have more of like baton style indices at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock position. Now the iconic Tudor snowflake hand stack remains with that broad snowflake hour hand, more of an elongated sword style minute hand. And then I like how that second hand just extends all the way to the periphery of the dial there. And keeping with the Tudor Submariner style, you have a very nice color-matched blue aluminum bezel insert. There is a luminous pearl at the 12 o'clock position, should you want to use that in low light situations as an impromptu elapsed time marker. And the overall legibility of this watch is actually quite good. I do really like how the silver surrounds just play with the light, and the luminous application on this watch is actually very, very good. Now maybe I was a little naive when they first released this watch over a year ago, but I just assumed that they would use a blue or BGW9 lume application, similar to what they used on the blue Pelagos. But in fact, this watch does use green Swiss Superluminova, that is very evenly applied and very long lasting. And I do really like how easy it is to get orientation with the watch, considering that you do have the long triangle marker at the 12. And of course, because it's a no-date complication as well, the symmetry of the dial remains very, very good and well balanced. Now, another thing I love about Tudor BB is their bezel action, which again is some of the best bezel action you're going to get within that sub $5,000 price category. With the Black Bay line, it's a 60-click unidirectional bezel. It's a coin edge style bezel. It's quite thin though, so you're basically going to just have to grip it between the 12 and 6 o'clock position. But the action is extremely consistent and crisp. Have a listen. You can really feel each individual detent, and there is zero backplay, and also the alignment is quite good as well. Now for future iterations, they could perhaps make the coin edge bezel a little bit thicker so it's easier to grip. And hey, throwing in a ceramic bezel insert like they did on the Tudor Pelagos that's fully loomed would also be quite nice to see, but not a deal breaker by any means. Now, unlike the Tudor Pelagos, I do actually like the case finishing on this watch quite well. The Pelagos is a titanium watch and it's pretty much completely matte finish, but with this Black Bay 58, you're getting high polish on the sides of the case, a very nice polished bevel that extends when you make that transition from the side of a case to the hoods of the lugs here, which are done in nice brushed fashion. The crown has the Tudor rose embossed in it. It's a very nice sized crown. There are no crown guards, and it's very easy to unwind and manipulate. In the open position, you can manually wind this movement, which is the in-house Tudor caliber MT5402. You get a 70-hour power reserve with this guy, some upgrades like a silicone hairspring to make it more anti-magnetic, and it is a COSC certified chronometer, so accuracy is going to be very good. And if you pull it all the way out to the first position here, you can actually hack, stop the seconds hand, and then you can adjust this watch to any reference time you want. And you can just see the crown tubes and stem here are really solid. That's not going anywhere. And it's very easy to actually re-engage and rethread the crown. Okay, so let's talk about the biggest gripe that I do have with this watch, and that is the design of the bracelet. And this is something that was actually pointed out quite recently by a fellow YouTuber and friend, Sanjay, from the YouTube channel Engineer Wannabe. I highly recommend you check out his channel. The finish is mostly brushed, and then you have high polish on the sides. You do have faux rivets on the bracelet, which for me doesn't really bother me at all. I like that they use slot screws to fix each individual link in place if you want to size it. But here's where the problems start, and that's with the articulation of the links near the clasp here. You can actually see that this last link before you get to the clasp does not pivot at all. And then because of the way the milled swing arm on the underside of a clasp works here, you don't get a lot of articulation on these two individual links either. What this ultimately means is that the fixed length of the clasp portion of this watch is about the same lug-to-lug dimension as the head of the watch too. So if you have really tiny wrists, or even with me with someone with larger wrists, I do find this clasp and bracelet a little bit uncomfortable to wear for long periods of time. Now additionally, with these Tudor clasps, you get 3 micro adjustment anchoring points here. They could have probably put in a 4th anchoring point, and they could have also provided some form of toolless on-the-fly adjustment like they do on the Pelagos, but that's not the case here. You do have a flip lock security mechanism with Tudor engraved on this clasp. It's actually very nice to manipulate and open, and I also like that they use these ceramic pin snaps here, so when you do close up a clasp, it's very secure even without the fold over security. Now it is a nicely milled out clasp here. You do have solid end links, and you can see the case back itself is actually quite sterile. And the way it's screwed in too is kind of proprietary, so if you wanted to open up the case back, you're going to need a similar tool that is used for a lot of Rolex steel sports models. So here's a quick wrist shot of how the Tudor Black Bay Navy Blue sits on my 19 centimeter circumference wrist. That's 7.5 inches if you're going imperial. And sized up for my wrist, this guy comes in at a very comfortable 142 grams. And you can see down the barrel, it does conform to your wrist quite well, But again, the lack of articulation on the clasp side is a little bit uncomfortable. But I also want to point out, if you're not a fan of the bracelet, this thing is an absolute strap monster. So putting on aftermarket or even the factory Tudor leather or NATO strap might be a good alternative if you suffer with the lack of articulation for the bracelet. But guys, at the end of the day, I do think that this is quite a versatile and well-spec'd mid-sized dive watch for the money. Again, I really like the blue colorway. I like the overall legibility and design of the watch and the performance in the in-house Tudor caliber movement. In terms of gripes go, I mean, some minor ones are maybe improving the grip on the bezel, maybe having a ceramic loomed bezel insert, but definitely I wish that they will start improving how they design these bracelets for the Black Bay models. But as always guys, I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments of this video as well. If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video.